I always felt my Welshness very strongly. I was very proud of being Welsh. I think it was a very important part of my identity. Primary school, when I went to an English language school, but our head teacher spoke Welsh. And so we learned a lot of Welsh songs and Welsh hymns. And then when I went to the grammar school, as it was then, I had a really inspirational Welsh teacher. And I knew that I wanted to become a Welsh speaker, which is not easy, of course, as you know. But I did O-level and A-level Welsh. And then when I went to Aberystwyth, I went to the first year to live in Pantycelyn, which is the Welsh-speaking students' hall. And it was there really that I learned to speak Welsh. I could read and write Welsh before, but speaking Welsh was something different in a largely English-speaking area. So it was there that I learned to speak Welsh. And yes, it does change your view on the world. And it does give you a different identity and a different understanding, I think, of everything. And it was, for me, fulfilling something that I'd always wanted to do. My father was English, so he didn't get it in any case. My mother did, and she went on to go to Welsh classes later. She never learned to speak Welsh, but she did make an effort to learn.
Apart from your colleagues, there aren't many people in the European Parliament that speak Welsh.
No, but my office always spoke Welsh.
Yeah.
My staff were always Welsh speaking, and so we, in that sense, we always ensured that everyone who worked with us and around us knew that there was a Welsh language and that we used it in our everyday work. And I think that was important in Europe as well.
And you, as it 2004, you made a speech in Welsh in the European Parliament, and that was the first time that had been done.
We'd campaigned from day one, really. Firstly, to have the right to speak other languages in the European Parliament. I mean, there were 23 official languages. I couldn't understand, and the many groups that came to visit me in the European Parliament, very often from schools or colleges, couldn't understand how there were 23 official languages and Welsh wasn't one of them, when Welsh was an official language in Wales. And so the first thing that I did with my colleagues in Parliament from other small nations was to campaign to change the rule that you couldn't use other languages in the Parliament, because prior to that, the chair would just switch off your microphone. If we got that rule changed, then the next step, of course, was to get our languages recognised and to get interpretation. So when I spoke Welsh in the Parliament, there was no interpretation. But at that time, the UK had the presidency of the EU. So Tony Blair was in the Parliament as the president at the time. So I spoke Welsh when Tony Blair was there. And I said in Welsh, and I had to translate myself in English, why can't we use Welsh in this chamber? Why isn't Welsh an official language? It should be an official language. And then we continued to campaign until eventually we got what was called co-official status for Basque, Catalan, Galician, Welsh, Scots, Gaelic. And what that meant was that you could use those languages in the European Parliament, also in the Committee of the Regions and the Council of Ministers, where they would have interpretation. But because of internal politics in the Parliament, we never succeeded in getting interpretation in the Parliament. So even though I could speak Welsh, it wasn't translated. So we've always campaigned for that. Whenever I had events in the Parliament that I organised myself, I always had translation there from Welsh, which was great. But I was really moved in my final speech in the European Parliament before we left because of Brexit. I spoke in Welsh in the Parliament, and the interpreters got in touch with me, with my office, and said, can you send us the text of your speech and also the English translation, and we will ensure that that's put on the record. So there's a record of proceedings, like Hansard in Westminster. And even though they're not really allowed to do that, they did that as a gesture of solidarity.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more conversations with people who want to build the future of Wales. And do go and find, like and enjoy new.wales across all your favourite social media channels.